Welcome back to What's Really Going On.
It's good to be here.
Today, we are going to be undertaking a pretty methodical analysis of a highly controversial and, I have to say, very comprehensive body of thought.
hmm
It deals with global power structures, economic control, religious identity.
Right. And we should be clear from the top, we are not interested in comfort today.
No, not at all. We are interested in clarity. We're going to unpack every single extreme claim presented within this specific worldview piece by piece.
That's absolutely right. Our focus is the full analytical scope of this perspective. We're examining claims that go way beyond, traditional political critique.
Oh,
They move into outright allegations of global conspiracy, theological perversion, and systematic exploitation.
so the mission for you listening is for us to dissect the logic and the language they use to articulate these arguments.
Exactly. So you can grasp the totality of this critical structure,
Yeah.
how it all fits together in their minds.
Absolutely. So we'll start where the source material starts.
Which is with the most foundational and, frankly, aggressive attacks on the identity itself.
This is not just a disagreement over, politics or finance.
Right.
The source immediately tries to pathologize the very concept of the identity it's criticizing. So, part one, defining the conflict. We're talking about Judaism, Semitism, and control.
The material launches with this dual-pronged assault on religious identity.
Okay.
First, it asserts that Judaism is a cult,
Just flat out.
flat out. And it states this emphatically,
Mm-hmm.
claiming it fits all the criteria of a destructive cult structure.
That's a huge rhetorical move right at the start.
It is. It's designed to strip the identity of its status as a world religion and reduce it to, a manipulative, closed organization.
But it doesn't stop there with the sort of social pathology of a cult.
No.
It brings in a psychological layer later on, describing the identity as an extreme, self-obsessional, compulsive disorder.
Which is an incredibly potent way to delegitimize a faith tradition.
How so?
Well, it shifts the entire criticism from, say, an ideological dissent that you can argue with.
To something that needs, a clinical intervention.
Precisely. It's not something to be debated, it's something to be cured. The strategy there is crucial.
So how do they go about defining this so-called disorder?
They offer these specific dual criteria. They're designed to cover both religious observance and ideological self-perception.
Okay, so the first part is about practice.
The first part targets practice. It involves the radical ritualizing and regulating of every minutia of life.
So things like dietary laws or daily prayers.
Exactly. But by calling it radical ritualizing, the source positions that meticulous adherence not as, spiritual devotion,
But as a symptom.
as a symptom of a clinical pathology.
And what about the ideological component? Because that's where they target the concept of chosenness, right?
Precisely. This compulsive ritualism is allegedly combined with an acute megalomaniacal sense of entitlement.
A sense of entitlement.
And the source argues this is the central ideological symptom of the disorder. It hammers this point home by directly referencing the self-designation as the chosen ones.
So the synthesis of their argument is that this obsession with detailed ritual, when you combine it with a belief in innate superiority.
Then you have what they define as a mental and societal disorder. The whole strategy is about delegitimizing the identity itself.
That structural attack on identity, then, it sort of paves the way for a theological redefinition.
It really does. The source moves almost immediately to an explicit and incredibly inflammatory equation.
Which is?
Semitism, Satanism.
And in their view, this isn't just a hyperbolic insult.
Not at all. They present it as a foundational truth that they've discovered through their critique.
So this requires us to get into their theological framework. What is it?
Well, the material argues that the Jewish God is not the traditional male monotheistic deity.
Okay.
Rather, the true object of worship is, and they use this term explicitly, the whore.
The whore. And what do they mean by that?
They mean Mother Nature, or the procreator par excellence.
I see. So by equating the deity with this sort of base physical biological force.
The whore, exactly. They argue that the religion is fundamentally rooted in the worship of the material world.
And therefore, in their view, satanic, or at least anti-spiritual.
That's the logic. It's a radical attempt to flip the concept of monotheism completely on its head.
And they don't just apply this to Judaism.
No, they absolutely apply this same structural criticism to Islam.
Right. They state that the same goes for Islam.
And they claim that their God is Allat, not Allah.
Which is a reference to a pre-Islamic goddess, Allat.
It is. The intention is very clear. to link both Judaism and Islam back to a singular, allegedly satanic worship of a physical, whore-like nature figure.
And by doing that, placing them outside the bounds of what the source considers morally legitimate spirituality.
Exactly.
So if the identity is defined as a cult and a disorder, the source then turns to history to find evidence of its exposure and then its suppression.
And this is where the narrative transitions from that theological critique to a full-blown conspiracy history.
It starts with the central figure of Western civilization.
Right. The source claims that Jesus understood the danger.
The danger of this cult.
Of this cult, this compulsive system they just defined. And he tried to expose it.
And was subsequently ruthlessly canceled.
That's the word they use, canceled. It reframes Jesus entirely. He's not a messiah performing miracles.
He's an early political dissident.
A social dissident who was effectively silenced and removed from the public sphere by the very entity he was trying to warn the world about.
And this, for them, establishes a pattern. A pattern of critique followed by suppression that they argue continues to this day.
Yes.
That established historical pattern then jumps forward 2 millennia to modern claims of financial and political manipulation.
And here we need to get into the specific allegations from Professor Dr. Hugo de Garis.
Right, regarding the massive crimes committed against humanity by the Majus.
And we should clarify for you, the listener, the source's explicit terminology here. Majus is an acronym they created.
It stands for massively evil, massively exploitative Jews.
It's a very intentional choice of terminology. By creating this acronym, the source attempts to say they're only targeting those they deem massively evil and exploitative.
Not all people of Jewish descent.
That's the implication, yes. The entire analysis then shifts to the supposed mechanisms of financial and political control, which they allege are run by Miju central banksters and Miju neocons.
And this is where the sheer magnitude of the claims it really starts to accumulate.
It really does.
Let's spend some serious time here just detailing the allegations against those Miju central banksters, because the list of purported crimes is staggering.
It is, and the source links them all into one unified economic attack model.
Okay, so what's the central claim?
The central claim is that they are systematically stealing half of all taxes collected. Half. But that theft, they say, is only the starting point.
So what do they do with that stolen capital?
According to this, it's utilized to actively promote wars.
Why?
Because generating conflict serves as a vehicle for further exploitation.
So conflict then drives specific economic outcomes.
2 key outcomes, according to the source. The generation of massive economic depressions, on one hand,
And on the other.
the constant inflation of currency. This allows them to steal wealth through the diminishing value of the dollar.
And the source argues this isn't just like passive economic control.
Oh no, it's active subversion of American democracy itself.
So the banksters are accused of manipulating the highest level of U.S. government.
Specifically, selecting and assassinating, and they give a number,
Half a dozen U.S. presidents.
who resisted their influence.
And the ultimate goal of all of this combined financial strategy.
Is the deliberate, intentional destruction of the United States.
Wow.
The source claims the banksters are fundamentally destroying what was once a beautiful country by grounding it in unsustainable debt.
So they weave together tax theft, war promotion, economic instability, political assassination, and national bankruptcy.
Into one single, cohesive narrative of malicious economic sabotage.
Okay, so if the banksters handle the economic sabotage, the political wing, the Maju neocons, they are assigned the role of war instantiation.
Exactly. The source holds the neocons responsible for forcing U.S. politicians into the wars with Iraq and Afghanistan.
And this isn't just a critique of foreign policy.
No, it's framed as a deliberate act of national self-destruction for the benefit of external actors.
The source even assigns a precise cost to this,
They do. $3 trillion per war,
resulting in $6 trillion of what they call entirely unnecessary spending.
which is then cited as the primary driver for bankrupting the U.S. Treasury.
So the argument makes a crucial pivot right here. It links this financial and political manipulation directly to the control of public information.
They have to. The source must demonstrate that these alleged perpetrators have the power to suppress the criticism leveled against them.
Which leads us to the specific allegation from Professor de Garis concerning his essay.
The one titled, Learning to Hate the Me-Jews.
Right.
This is the critical modern censorship anecdote that the source uses to illustrate this alleged capability.
So what does Daguerre's claim happened?
He recounts that this specific essay was rising really rapidly in popularity on Google. It was reaching a strong, visible position in the search results.
He was monitoring his traffic?
Daily. And he noticed a significant detail: 2 hits originating specifically from Israel.
Which he claims identified the source of the criticism.
That's his assertion. And the immediate consequences of that identification are cited as proof of suppression.
So what happened the next day?
The very next day, the essay had vanished from general visibility on his public hit list.
Vanished completely.
Well, not completely. It was still accessible if you did a highly specific search.
Like typing his name plus the acronym MIJU.
Exactly. But it was removed from the common search results that had been driving its visibility.
And his conclusion from this?
His conclusion, stated explicitly in the material, is that the essay was censored or given a handcrafted low positioning by pro-MIJU agents in Israel.
So this one anecdote for the source becomes the smoking gun.
It becomes the proof that the whole mechanism of control is unified.
It demonstrates that the alleged financial criminals also control the informational infrastructure.
Like Google, which the source notes is Jewish and a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Thereby allowing them to commit massive crimes and then simultaneously eliminate the public's awareness of those crimes.
That is the complete picture they paint.
Okay, so if the claims of financial and information control are true, in their view...
Then the natural next question is, what is the end goal? And how is that control used to manage the minds of the masses?
Right. And the source's central argument is that this control over information is fundamentally a psychological weapon.
Whoever controls the media controls the mind's moves of the masses. That's the quote.
And they claim this media control is being used to disseminate a stream of satanic shite all over the globe by the Jewish-controlled media.
And that stream of content is argued to be the direct mechanism for achieving mass conformity.
And for suppressing the critical thought, people would need to see the exploitation that's happening.
Exactly.
So to conceptualize the resulting global state, the source adopts a concept.
It adopts and radically modifies the indigenous American concept of wetiko.
Can you explain that a bit?
Traditionally, wetiko describes a spiritual or psychological disorder. It's akin to a cannibalistic psychosis.
A focus on extreme selfishness, insatiable greed.
And consumption at the expense of others, which spreads through a community like a virus.
But the source politicizes this deeply spiritual concept.
Very much so.
So what is their assertion about who is responsible for turning this into a global mass phenomenon?
They assert that the Jewish Zionist globalists are the likely penultimate manufacturers of wetiko.
Manufacturers, so they're not just susceptible to greed.
No, the claim is that they actively and deliberately orchestrate the conditions necessary to induce mass psychosis within the human race.
And the goal of that is to ensure a population that is compliant, distracted, and unable to recognize its own exploitation.
That's the argument.
And this alleged control isn't just, one thing. It represents a total institutional capture.
It has to be, for their argument to work. It's a total capture necessary to enforce this manufactured mass psychosis.
So we need to detail the comprehensive list of societal mechanisms this group allegedly dominates.
The control structure extends far beyond just banks and media. It becomes truly pervasive.
In addition to the bankers and the world economic system.
The source claims dominance over our cultural and our physical inputs.
Okay, so specifically, they name Hollywood.
Which controls cultural messaging and moral norms.
Big Pharma.
Controlling health and dependency.
The entire food industry.
Controlling physical well-being.
And all education from K through 12.
Controlling the indoctrination of youth.
And of course, the media.
Controlling the daily narratives.
So the argument is that by controlling all of these critical sectors, finance, entertainment, health, food, education, and news,
they ensure that the entire global information and resource structure is geared toward maintaining the system that generates this wetiko psychosis.
And this comprehensive system is allegedly designed specifically to shield the Jewish role in the mass psychosis that the human race is currently experiencing from any kind of scrutiny.
That's the claim.
This elaborate structural critique, then, it inevitably leads back to finance.
It always does. Finance is defined as the primary engine driving this alleged empire.
And we have to discuss their intense focus on economic exploitation, which relies heavily on reviving some deep historical and very derogatory tropes.
The language they use is unmistakable. The source is explicit about their financial practices. They claim they thrive from unsavory usury.
which is a direct rhetorical link to age-old negative stereotypes about finance and lending.
Absolutely. Specifically those tied to pre-modern restrictions on interest. It frames their success purely as predatory exploitation.
The source even claims that the protocols had warned of this, of systemic Semitism.
Yes, and that now in the modern day, we're living under its full implementation.
And the derogatory language they use to describe these financial figures, it fuses religious, criminal, and financial terminology into these singular unified attacks.
The terms are designed to be shocking and unforgettable. They refer to the structure as a capitalist kosher cartel.
Suggesting that criminality is intertwined with religious practice and wealth.
Right. They label the entire institutional structure a synagogue of Satan.
Using religious architecture to suggest a core wickedness.
And finally, they label everyone involved Shylock shysters one and all.
And the use of Shylock is, of course, a deliberate, direct reference to the most potent negative historical stereotype connecting Jewish identity to predatory lending.
There's no ambiguity there.
The source even provides a mocking quotation of the alleged perpetrator's motivation.
Yes, the purported internal motivation for this relentless exploitation is quoted in a highly mocking tone.
We got to make a shekel or two, oy vey.
Yes, we got to make a shekel or two.
It portrays the drive for wealth as paramount, inherently selfish, and the sole, vulgar justification for the alleged crimes.
So if this alleged system of exploitation is Semitism, what does that mean for the concept of anti-Semitism? We have to follow the source's logic all the way through to his conclusion.
And if we accept the source's highly specific, pathologizing redefinition,
Then Semitism is no longer an identity or an ethnicity.
it's redefined purely as a mental disorder rooted in Jewish exploitation.
So if Semitism is exploitation,
Then the source derives the striking conclusion that anti-Semitism would logically be a good, just thing.
wow.
And then the source asks rhetorically, who in their right mind would want condone Semitism?
This reframing is the final potent rhetorical strategy in this section. Yes, it's designed to rationalize historical and present-day animosity as a necessary moral resistance to a systemic exploitative disorder.
From there, the structural critique moves into a full-scale historical revision.
It does. It specifically takes issue with analyses that attribute the destructive, acquisitive, global mindset, the Wedico logic we mentioned, exclusively to white European Christians.
And the source sees this focus on European Christian expansionism as a diversion.
An intentional diversion, yes.
Yeah.
A form of misdirection designed to protect the true, deeper actors who they believe operate behind the scenes.
The argument being, if you only look at the face of colonialism, you miss the financial mechanisms that were driving it.
Precise.
So to correct this perceived deflection, the source puts forward its own extremely aggressive counterclaim regarding colonialism and the Atlantic slave trade.
They attempt a complete shift of historical accountability.
For the foundational economic atrocity of American history.
Right. The claim is that the Jews ran the transatlantic slave trade.
Ran it.
Ran it. That they owned the preponderance of American slaves. And furthermore, that they ran the auctions where slaves were sold.
So this is an explicit attempt to move the historical culpability away from white European Christian colonizers.
And onto this specific financial power structure.
And they summarize the concept of Europe or European itself as a euphemism.
That's right. They claim it obscures the true industrial forces that have been at play throughout history.
So they argue that the term European in the context of colonialism, the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution,
And even modern geopolitics is mostly a euphemism for the Jewish industrialists who have captured the world.
So in this worldview, the economic and political actions we typically attribute to white Europeans were, in reality,
Orchestrated, financed, and driven by these specific industrial powers operating behind a Gentile facade.
moving from historical economics to modern political identity. The source offers some of its most radical and extreme claims about Zionism and the State of Israel.
The political claims are absolute and theological.
How so?
Zionism is linked directly to a satanic system. A Zionist state is a satanic state.
And they back this up with a theological claim.
They do. That a safe homeland is never to be founded on earth.
This idea, although it's sometimes echoed by certain ultra-Orthodox anti-Zionist groups, it's weaponized here.
Absolutely weaponized to completely delegitimize the political state's existence on the basis of religious and moral corruption.
And they reference the alleged historical architects who moved this system from ideology to reality.
They cite two figures as being instrumental. Rothschild, who they claim controls global
The
finance,
banksters we discussed earlier.
and Theodore Herzl, who is, universally recognized as the father of modern Zionism.
And the link is explicit and strategic.
Yes, Zionism is presented as the political manifestation of the Rothschild financial control, a state established to protect financial interests and provide a home base for the global controllers.
There is also a very specific and unique linguistic argument the source makes about the name of the state itself.
Yeah, it's an exercise in wordplay designed to undermine its existence.
They use an anagram.
Israel is a slayer.
And this simple, provocative inversion then leads them to a firm ontological conclusion.
Israel isn't real.
So it moves beyond political critique and attempts to strip the state of its legitimate physical existence through clever linguistic manipulation.
That's the goal.
Okay, so here's where the conspiracy narrative reaches its absolute apex.
The claim of global genocide.
Right. If the banksters and neocons are controlling the systems and Zionism is the political center, what is the ultimate final shared goal of these industrialists?
The assertion is extreme and comprehensive.
What is it?
The source claims that the same industrialists controlling big tech and big pharma
The very institutions that control our information and our health
are currently attempting to fulfill their ancient dream of world dominion by obliterating and genociding the non-Jewish population of the human race, save a few slaves and aided to serve them.
Let's pause there for a second and analyze the connection the source is making between big tech and big pharma.
Okay.
What is the implied relationship between these two seemingly different industries that leads the source to conclude they share this ancient goal?
Well, the source implies that big pharma controls the physical body.
Through mandated health measures, vaccination programs, disease narratives.
Right. While big tech controls the mind through surveillance, censorship, and manufactured reality.
So by controlling both the physical inputs and the mental narrative.
They possess the means not only for control, but for selective obliteration and depopulation.
The goal being to create a compliant, AI-assisted world populated only by their chosen servants and themselves.
That's the picture they're painting.
And within this geopolitical sphere, the source makes a very pointed reference to a specific modern conflict.
They do. They link it directly to religious texts.
What's the reference?
They briefly but pointedly mention Israel's apartheid attempt to exterminate the Palestinian people.
Presenting this as contemporary evidence of that broader genocidal goal.
Yes. And then they reinforce this by referencing a poem by Alice Walker, which asserts that it is our frightful duty to study the Talmud.
Implying that the text contains the necessary blueprints or ideological justification for such extermination attempts.
That's the clear implication.
This intense level of historical and political condemnation then feeds directly into some dire political warnings.
Warnings which rely heavily on historic, toxic anti-Semitic texts and traumatic historical events.
Let's look at the foundation of their historical proof, which is their heavy reliance on the protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Right. The source does not treat this infamous forgery as fiction.
No.
Rather, it explicitly claims there is more than a grain of truth in it.
And they analyze the text and claim its central message tells a unified tale of malice, revenge, cupidity, and murderous hate against Christians and Christianity.
So for the source, this document is a historical record of the conspiracy that they allege is currently being implemented globally.
And this belief in the protocols provides the foundation for Professor Daguerre's ultimate and most inflammatory warning to the mid-Jews.
It's a comparison designed to be a direct historical threat.
What is the warning?
It's a specific projection of historical trauma onto the American political future. Daguerre claims that if these mid-Jews continue to take over the U.S. through their financial and political mechanisms,
the American people will eventually rise up the way the German people did and find their own Hitler.
the comparison implies that the current system of alleged exploitation is so severe that it will inevitably trigger a violent existential backlash.
And he doesn't just stop with that generalized comparison.
No, he uses highly specific and violent historical analogies to emphasize the mechanism of this potential backlash.
What are they?
He draws a highly inflammatory parallel to the post-World War I period in Germany.
Okay.
He references the Freikorps, the German volunteer paramilitary units assassinating Jewish communists in Germany in the 1920s.
And he claims the Germans were reacting against a previous trauma.
Yes. He asserts that the Russian Revolution was not an organic uprising, but actually a Jew putsch.
And that this push resulted in the massacre of 60+ million white Christian Russians.
Exactly. So the implication is that if the American people believe they are facing a similar existential threat, history provides a violent precedent for their response to those they perceive as the perpetrators.
Okay, we're going to shift dramatically now.
Yes, from global conspiracy and geopolitical warnings to the source's highly detailed and severe critique of traditional religious practices.
The source argues that these rituals actually make the practitioners unfit,
Literally, not fit kosher for purpose, in the moral sense.
and the critique hinges on animal exploitation.
Yes, arguing that reliance on animal products makes the chosen ones morally deficient.
The source methodically details specific practices they deem unfit, and it starts with the ritual of caparo.
Capro, which is a ritual involving the swinging of a chicken over one's head before slaughter.
Is described derisively as nothing more than choking chickens and calling it caparo.
This frames a solemn atonement ritual as nothing more than ritualized, unnecessary animal abuse. It completely strips it of its spiritual meaning.
Next on the list is the cornerstone of Jewish dietary law, kosher itself.
And traditional kosher practice is utterly condemned.
As what?
As the consumption of dead animal flesh, which the source refers to simply as dead flesh and call it kosher.
The source argues this cannot possibly be a fit or suitable dietary practice in the modern age.
Especially when, as they note, plant-based vegan food is limitless and readily available. The critique is rooted in a fundamentalist interpretation of ethical veganism as the only morally acceptable standard.
And this criticism extends even to the most sacred religious objects.
It does. It focuses on the pervasive use of animal products in items like the tefillin and Torah scrolls,
Source finds deep fault here.
arguing that the practitioners are wearing horrid hide hats to ward off evil, referring to the leather tefillin boxes and straps.
And noting the perceived irony that they allegedly contain it within their own practices.
Right. Furthermore, the Holy Book itself is criticized for being written on dead animal skin, on parchment.
And they question the ethical fitness of using leather shoes or belts when synthetic or plant-based materials exist.
The claim is that the rituals themselves are inherently compromised by violence against animals.
And the conclusion they draw from this ritual critique is extreme.
It is. It equates religious practitioners with violent actors.
So by combining the ritual slaughter, the consumption of flesh, and the use of animal products and sacred objects,
The source concludes that the chosen ones are sacrificial serial killers.
and savage siblings of their satanic sire.
Yes. And to support this specific religious judgment, they cite the biblical passage, John 8:44, which is often interpreted as casting the practitioners as children of the devil.
The source uses this theological denunciation to assert that God's family don't feast on flesh.
Right.
This intense condemnation of animal consumption leads to the most shocking juxtaposition in the material.
A harrowing comparison between a historical tragedy and modern industrial practice.
This is a profoundly disturbing rhetorical move. It seems designed solely to emphasize scale.
The source argues that complaining about the historical Holocaust, while simultaneously being complicit in the current system of animal slaughter,
Maintains the most heinous 10/4/7 365 present-day Holocaust ever known on Earth.
the comparison is utilized to suggest a moral hypocrisy, claiming that the magnitude of suffering inflicted on animals today is vastly greater than historical human suffering.
And the graphic comparison they use to illustrate the scale of modern animal slaughter is designed to shock the listener into agreement.
It is deeply impactful. They claim that 24/7, 365 animal butchery makes Belsen look like Butlins.
Invoking the notorious Nazi concentration camp and a chain of cheerful British holiday camps.
The intention is to emphasize that the sheer continuous scale of modern mechanized slaughter eclipses historical atrocities in terms of total suffering.
And they provide staggering statistics to back this up,
200,000 animals are slaughtered globally per minute.
which amounts to a conservative estimate of 150 billion animals per annum.
The numbers are hard to even comprehend.
Given this total condemnation of traditional ritual, the source then proposes a completely new ethical standard.
A radical reevaluation called Kosher 2.0.
The proposal is based on returning to the literal Hebrew meaning of the word kosher.
Fit or suitable.
The source argues that the true measure of fitness must shift entirely away from archaic ritual requirements like separating meat and milk to modern ethical, environmental, and health considerations.
They argue that traditional ritual does not make something fit. Moral purity does.
And they establish a clear, escalating hierarchy for this new definition of sit.
A hierarchy focusing entirely on ethical sourcing and veganism.
Yes. There are 4 ascending tiers in the ethical framework. Let's walk through them.
Okay. Kosher 2.0, basic, is defined as the foundational commitment to veganism, no animal products whatsoever.
Moving up from there.
Kosher 2.0, silver, requires that the food meet the basic standard and be organic. This focuses on environmental fitness and health.
The 3rd tier, gold, expands the ethical framework beyond animals to human labor.
Right. Kosher 2.0, gold, demands that the product have no sweatshop human slavery attached.
This is a crucial expansion of the ethical concept of fit.
It explicitly links the ethical treatment of animals to the ethical treatment of human workers within the supply chain.
And the highest standard.
Kosher 2.0, platinum. This is the most restrictive. Raw vegan,
Meaning the food has not been heated over 40 degrees Celsius.
allegedly maximizing its nutritional fitness.
This is a total ethical and dietary overhaul.
It is, which the source summarizes with 2 incredibly memorable, catchy vegan slogans.
Stop sachet and eat a courgette.
And keep kashrut and eat a beetroot.
Finally, the source offers a critique and a radical proposal regarding rites of passage and reproduction.
Specifically targeting the bar mitzvah.
They analyze the bar mitzvah, which traditionally marks the transition to religious accountability at age 13.
And the source redefines this rite of passage as marking the beginning of Yetzer Hara.
We should probably explain Yetzer Hara.
In traditional thought, it's the evil inclination or the urge to do wrong, which is balanced by Yetzer Hatov, the good inclination.
And the source claims the bar mitzvah marks the sexual weaponizing of the previously innocent child.
That's the claim.
So what is the radical proposal for dealing with this perceived evil inclination that begins at age 13?
They propose a radical, twofold solution. First, that the bar mitzvah should mark the start of an intense anti-natalizing program
Full-on Yetzer Hatov good inclination conditioning.
to repress this evil inclination and discourage reproduction.
And the second, more extreme option.
Better still, Brit Milah sterilization, vasectomy, instead of circumcision.
Wow. So they suggest replacing the traditional religious procedure for newborn males with a surgical sterilization procedure for older children.
Yes, arguing that preventing reproduction is the ultimate ethical act against the alleged exploitation and environmental destruction they claim is inherent to the system.
And that brings us to the conclusion of our thorough examination of this material.
We have systematically dissected every claim presented within this highly specific and controversial worldview.
So we've spent our time today in a methodical, unapologetic examination of this extreme perspective regarding global power and identity. We began with the claims that a major world religion is, in fact, an extreme self-obsessional compulsive disorder built on ritual pathology and megalomaniacal entitlement.
We then detailed the systematic allegations of global exploitation, following the source's argument from the mere Jew central banksters and neocons,
Who are accused of bankrupting the U.S. through war and debt, right through to the alleged digital censorship executed by pro-Jew agents.
We analyzed the source's concept of wedico, moving from a traditional spiritual ailment to a state of manufactured global mass psychosis enforced by the alleged capture of key institutions: finance, media, big pharma, Hollywood, and education.
Then we covered the profound historical revisionism, which attributes the transatlantic slave trade and global colonialism entirely to specific hidden Jewish industrialists.
And we dissected the source's extreme warnings of potential future political violence, including that direct comparison to the rise of Hitler and the Freikorp assassinations.
Finally, we navigated the intense critique of traditional ritual, which led to that shocking comparison between historical human tragedy and the scale of modern animal butchery.
The Belson look like Butlin's claim.
Exactly. And this fueled the source's radical ethical proposal, Kosher 2.0, which completely reevaluated traditional practice based on an absolute escalating standard of veganism and anti-slavery mandate.
Concluding with the radical proposal for sterilization in place of traditional rites of passage.
We have provided you with a full, detailed, and analytical scope of this specific worldview.
It is a challenging set of assertions woven together by a complex internal logic that connects theological critique to geopolitical conspiracy and radical ethical reform.
So, we will leave you with a final thought, a core principle cited within the source material itself that frames the necessity of their critique.
Any house on falsehood found will, nay, must be torn to the ground.
Based on the totality of the claims we have covered today, we ask you, the listener, to consider what societal structures in your own life, your own nation, or your own belief system you believe might be built upon a fundamental falsehood today.
It is essential that this kind of critical material be examined fully and without apology. Make sure you subscribe to What's Really Going On so you never miss an in-depth analysis where we tackle the most difficult material.
Hit that like button, ring the notification bell to stay informed, and most importantly, leave comments below with your analysis and critique of the claims we've discussed. Share this information. We'll see you next time.